The following is a production of the University of Minnesota.
Hello, and welcome to an interview with University of Minnesota historian Hyman Berman about the past and possibly the future of the Faculty Senate and shared governance at the University of Minnesota. I'm Victor Bloomfield, an emeritus professor of biochemistry and biophysics here at the U. I've been here since 1970 and have been actively involved as a teacher and a researcher, as a faculty leader, and as an administrator for quite a number of years. However, Hyman Berman has me beat. He's been at the university since the early 1960s and has seen more developments here, both in breadth and in depth, than perhaps anyone else. He's also very well known outside the university, throughout the state, because of his frequent appearances on the Minnesota Public Television program Almanac. He may have represented the university to more people over a longer period of time than any other person. This year we're celebrating the centennial of the Faculty Senate at the University of Minnesota. It's a real pleasure to be able to talk with Hyman Berman today about his perceptions of how shared governance here got started, how it developed in the context of the broader society, and indeed some of perhaps what the future may bring. So, Hyman Berman, welcome.
Good to be here.
You've been a well-known figure at the University of Minnesota and in the state of Minnesota for a long time. When did you first come to Minnesota, and why?
Well, I came to Minnesota in 1961. I was recruited by the history department and in many ways by President Emeritus Wilson. I'd got my doctorate at Columbia University in 1956 and taught for 3 years after that at Brooklyn College, where I received tenure, but nonetheless went to Michigan State University for a tenured position. I was there less than a year when I got a call from my good friend David Noble in the history department whether I'd be able to come to the university and give a lecture. When I did, and discovered that it wasn't only a lecture, they were offering me a position. So with 1 year, I moved from Brooklyn to East Lansing, and from East Lansing to Minneapolis. When I got to the University of Minnesota, I discovered that President Wilson had received a multi-million-dollar grant from the Ford Foundation to study the impact of education on the children of the immigrant miners in northern Minnesota. And two of my colleagues, Clark Chambers and Timothy Smith, were already working on the project, but what they needed was someone in the labor history field and in the field of ethnic studies to deal with the immigrants, the inner immigrant life of the people up there that they were studying. So I studied self-education of the immigrant workers up there on President Wilson's grant, so to speak. That's how I got here.
It's an unusual arrangement for current day academia to have the president so much involved. How did you come to specialize in Minnesota history, particularly in labor history?
I got to be a Minnesota historian by the accident of working on the Iron Range and working on Minnesota history on the Iron Range through the ethnic communities up there. It was up there that I got to know a young dentist who was active in the school board, a member of the school board in Hibbing, who later became governor of the state, Rudy Perpich. And we became good friends. He was, of course, the person that introduced me to other historic actors, actors that now we think of them as historic. At the time, they were just friends. And that's how I got involved in Minnesota history. Minnesota has a strong and very active history of labor activity. And I was a labor historian, trained as a labor historian, did my work on the immigrant workers in the garment trades in the East, and my doctoral dissertation was on that. So it was a natural progression to follow this pattern into Minnesota as well.
How did you come to be involved in the faculty senate at the university?
That's an interesting question because, again, I got into the faculty senate in a very peculiar way. As I said, President Wilson was a colleague, a historical colleague of mine, and I was working, in fact, with him on this project. And one day I got a call from him, early '62 or middle '62, just first year here, '61, '62, saying, "Hi, I want you to run for the Senate." I said, "What the hell is the Senate?" So he told me, and I said, "Why do you want me to run for the Senate?" He said, "I need your vote." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "We have a dispute about whether the University of Minnesota football team, the Gophers, should go to the Rose Bowl for a second consecutive year. Ohio State has bowed out, and we are now qualified to go, and I want us to go." I said, "Football? Oh, Rose Bowl? Who's interested in that?" He said, "You are now." So I said, "Okay, I mean, we're colleagues, now friends, so sure." But let me tell you, President Wilson, now being President Wilson, when I get into the Senate, this is the only vote that you're going to get from me free. After that, you're going to have to work for it. He said, "Good." That's how I got involved.
Terrific story.